Hey, hello. What up, y'all? Y'all already know who it is. This is Damian Moody. I also go by Kashmere Majesty or Red Riding Hood, and I'm back again with another live video. And in today's live video, I am back with my sister Tommie, the real Tammi Terrell. This is written by Lily Montgomery, who is Tammi Terrell's sister, and Vicky Wright. With a foreword by Dionne Warwick. This is a second expanded edition book, and this is Lily Montgomery's account on the life, career, and death of her big sister, Tammi Terrell. And the next chapter is called A Star in Wildwood, Chapter 7. By summer 1962, Tommie was engaged in many activities. In addition to her singing and recording for Skepta Records in New York, my mother had taken her to the audition that changed her life as well as others. This was a delightful surprise. My mother drove Tommie down to Wildwood, New Jersey, where she auditioned for Steve Gibson in the Red Caps. Before we knew it, Tommie was part of the show. Daddy had to concede. By this time, there was no stopping my older sibling. This is when Tommie became groomed and primed as a true stage performer. This was where she began to absolutely flourish. My father's show of support was surprising. Up until this point, he was not happy with all of the showbiz scenarios. Tommie was incredibly talented, and Daddy could no longer deny that. He loved his daughter, and of course, deep within, he wanted to see her happy. Performing is what made her happy. He spent quite a bit of money to uproot our family for the summer. He rented an apartment on Roberts Avenue in Wildwood, New Jersey. It seemed Daddy accepted her choice for the time being. After all, she was signed to a renowned record label and was recording. When he held his prominent position in the lineup for Steve Gibson's band. The Redcats were headlining the Riptide. There were two other female artists on the show as well. Joan Proctor, who, oh, my nose itch. Yeah, my nose itch. Was a knockout, and Winona Carr, who could drink the men under the table, and she could belt out a deep and almost masculine type of voice. Although Tommie was the baby of the show, she held her own. She had been waiting for this moment her entire life. Her career could only get better from here. This first summer of hardcore show business was hectic. There were two shows every night, all summer long, and on the weekends there were matinees as well as the two evening shows. She was certainly busy. The artists bond with each other, friendships formed, and there was a lot of camaraderie amongst the entertainers. Or camaraderie. Oh, what the fuck is it? Camaraderie? Camaraderie? I don't know. Amongst the entertainers, after their gigs, everyone hung out and spent time together. Steve Gibson allowed Tommie to experiment with her style out of singing. Steve gets in the house. Oh, I already read that. My bad. I'm over here looking all over the damn things. She tried out different techniques and sounds. Again, she was a pro at impersonations and she would woo the crowd with her talent. This was when she really fine tuned everything. Her vocal phrasing and delivery. She was so comfortable on the stage at only 17 years old. The high volume of shows and large crowds did not intimidate her at all. Steve encouraged her to be free and express her true self. Tommie was extraordinary. Her recording career did not highlight her true talents. Her live shows were dynamic, in addition to being exciting and packed with energy. She accompanied herself on piano during some of her performances. She had a dance background and she was able to choreograph her shows too. Joan and Winona looked to Tommie for advice on stage and dance routines. She taught them dance steps, and they, on the other hand, taught Tommie stage poise, grace, and manners. The performers had a lot of give and take and learn from each other. The riptide was jumping that summer. I was only 13 and I was having a blast watching all the excitement from my limited perspective. I would sit by the pool and drink a martini whenever I could get away with it. They served me, no questions asked. That is what elegant ladies did in the movies, so I followed their lead. I would daydream that I would be famous like Tommie or one of the other ladies in the show. I was entirely too bashful to get up in front of the crowd, although I would rehearse at home with Tommie. I never got up enough nerve at the time to actually get on the real stage in front of an audience. A fantasy I kept to myself for a long time. God gives everyone a special gift, and He had unequivocally bestowed on my sister the gift of song, and it made me so happy just to see her light shine. I enjoyed the benefits I had from being Tommie's sister. I met so many stars when I was a child. The summers were spent in Wildwood where jam-packed, I mean, were, the summers we spent in Wildwood were jam-packed with stars. Clyde excuse me, the Bluebells, including Peggy LaBelle, Sarah Dash, Cindy Songbird, and Nona Hendricks. There was also Major Lance and then the Spinners, who were my favorite. The Foul Job, Fabian, uh, the Platters, and the Vibrations. One evening, I was honored to meet the person who, in my opinion, was the queen, Miss Etta James. She was coiffed in blonde hair and had the most beautiful complexion. Tammy introduced her, and together on stage that night, they tore the house down. A shake dancer by the name of A shake dancer by the name of Pussy Galore gave me my first lesson in belly dancing and buttocks. At least that's what I call it. That's when you make your posterior dance and one cheek rise up while the other remains still. I practiced for a while until I got it down pat. Girl, you couldn't tell me wasn't something. What the hell? I will never forget my birthday this year in New Jersey. Tommy had a show, and Mother went to Lansing to meet with Mr. Dynamite himself, James Brown. Uh oh. She went to convince him that her daughter was the up and coming, fantastic talent. She persuaded James to come see Tommy perform. According to Alan Leeds, who is an established James Brown discographer and historian, my uncle Bob was friends with Buddy Nolan, who was an associate of James Brown. Again, the boxing and entertainment worlds knew each other, and so the introductions happened through that channel. Mother was successful in her meeting with James Brown. I, on the other hand, was very upset that my family abandoned me on my birthday. Left for all alone, I found some Shiraz Regal whiskey my father had left unopened. I poured myself a shot, then another, and then one with scotch and milk. I eventually drank the whole filter whiskey. Child, I was exclusively inebriated. Oh my God. Stumbling from the room, I fell into the restaurant and announced to a room full of strangers, "Happy birthday to me." The proprietor, Miss Francis, grabbed me and ushered me back to the room. She put me in bed and stayed with me through the night. I regurg- re- I regurgitated for. Is that how you pronounce that? My bad, y'all. Y'all know, like I said prior, I'll be pronouncing words wrong sometimes. So please forgive me if I pronounce something wrong trying to read this book for what seemed like hours, and the room slowly disappeared. The following afternoon, I awoke to see Mom and Tommy standing over my bed. I could not lift my head or even speak. Tommy wanted to know if I was going to be wet, but Mom said this child has had enough punishment. I slept straight for 2 more days, uh, then eventually time and space came back to focus. The fun summer had finally ended. Our family was headed back to Philly. Tommy was now in high school and again busy as ever. My parents would allow her to be out of school at times so she could keep her career schedule. What would happen is Tommy would have gigs over the holiday breaks from school, and she took night classes to make up lost lessons. Chuck Jackson took her out on the road. I took Tammy to the Caribbean to perform. She was an excellent stage performer at the time. I first knew her when she was 15 at Skepter. My wife Helen was friends with her prior to that when they were very young and waited tables together in Atlantic City. Tammy was one of my favorite people. She never got her dues from anyone. She wanted it and she deserved it. She was her props, but unfortunately she got sick and they never came to her. Some of the songs she recorded on Skepta before she ever became Timmy Terrell include Is Mine, Voice of Experience, Big John, Make the Night Just a Little Longer, and Bird Bacharic, Bob Hilliard, Pintune, Sinner's Devotion, which is my favorite. I am most proud of her accomplishments so young, even Bacharic, huh? Recording. I absolutely love Voice of Experience too. This song and others were special treats because the backing vocals are none other than the fabulous Terrells. These were not big hits at the time, but for us they were great songs. We love Tommie's early success, and Mother and I enjoyed watching her unfold into a seasoned performer. Tommy was in New York so many weekends at a time. She had so many commitments. She kept a hectic schedule for a young girl. Along with school, she attended football games and hung out with her friends. She tried to be a normal teenager. I felt I did not have a sister at all. The boys were bountiful when Tommy was in high school. If she ever needed a ride or a favor, there were plenty of willing young men. They all came to their fair middens call. It was Alvin, Jackie, Fluffy, Falana, and my sister Jewish admirer, Neil Cohen. They did it on and off for about a year. Most of the boys would end up coming to our house at the same time. Tommy would hide upstairs and beg me to get rid of them for her. I would lie and tell them she was not home. I would blackmail her with this and get my way on something else. When I did just that, I was good at getting her to do things for me if I threatened to tell on her. Snitching ass. Whether it was lying to the boys for her or not telling on her in grades for smoking, she would clean my room for a week and do other chores for me just to keep me quiet. Tommy was always creating complicated situations for herself and making more drama than was necessary. I would often have to come to the rescue. The fellas were drawn to her like a magnet, and I could never get one. Tommy was driving too at this time. We had a white Carrera, and she drove it to the wall when she was out on the town. Or she drove into a wall. Daddy was very upset and had to go get her. Tommy never had her own car. She may have had one in Detroit, but in Philly, Tommy never had a car. Everyone took her anywhere she wanted to go, and I bet that happened to her later in Detroit as well. Tommy had a brief love affair with her Skepta label mate, Tommy Hunt. She considered him a gentleman and said he was the absolute best singer in the world. Tommy dated an older guy. She needed a mature partner. Yeah, I thought I was almost done. Each chapter's pretty long. Tommy Hunt says she was a very special lady. We didn't date for very long, and we always remained friends. We did not break up because of any problems or anything. Just being in this business and always going did not give us time to create anything lasting. It was a little bit hard with our careers. It was nice while it lasted. I never gave her any trouble. We had a good thing, and if we had last as a couple, it would have been lovely times and a nice life together. But we were both in this silly business. We were young, and for me, our love affair left me with happy memories of her. She was the type of person that was more or less like a whisper. You would see her and then she would be gone, but what she left behind was all goodness. She was pretty and talented and had everything going for her. She was happy go lucky, and all the guys were after her. She was a talk of the show business. What? She was a talk of the showbiz world at that time. She was the ultimate. She was the ultimate in show business. What? She absolutely loved it, and she could sing. We had a good support family at Skepta Records. People in those days were private with the romance and friendships. There was a certain amount of respect for each other. There's nothing bad you can say about Tammy. The girl was just a sweetheart of a lady. Anyone who says negative things about her must not have known her. She was not nasty at all when it came to her personality. She did not have a mean bone in her body, and she was one of the nicest ladies I had ever met. We did shows together, but she began to work more and more, and we didn't stay in touch as much. But would run into each other. I wish I could have stayed around her more to kind of help her and guide and protect her. George Cardell moved into our block in high school, and he and Tommy became even closer friends during this time. Thomasina had become a beautiful young lady and carried herself in a very mature way with a lot of class. She was far beyond the others in our group of friends. She was advanced beyond us. I thought she was growing up in junior high, but now, even more so, she had matured. She was a very blessed young lady at the time, blessed with looks, talent, and full personality. She wore her hair in a short cut at this time, and she was adorable. She was still doing so many talented shows at her school. She knew what she wanted to do in life. She and Lola would sing in talent shows, and both were so comfortable on stage. Performing was her thing, and she was the prettiest thing that was in cheerleading. She loved the attention that it gave her. I was a football player at the time, and we were both very, very popular. She had no use, though, for a boy my age. She had to have an older guy. We were teens, but she seemed to be in her 20s or even 30s and needed a more mature guy. With both of us being popular, we would not have made a good boyfriend girlfriend pair, but as friends, we were very close. She was admirable in the way she demanded a certain amount of respect, and she got it. She, we spent countless hours on the front porch talking. Thomasina was an open person, and that quality made it so easy to bond with her and feel close to her. We both went to many basketball and football games with our group of friends. It was lovely times and good memories. Our school was very integrated, mixed with black and Jewish. I said interrogated. I mean integrate. I'm sorry, mixed with black and Jewish. Everyone is set at the everyone in our school and in our neighborhood. If you were beautiful, especially and stood out, then black kids and Jewish kids loved you just the same. Thomasina stood out and was accepted well by both black and white kids in high school. When we was younger, and it seemed she was home a lot more when we all hung out with Thomasina. So I didn't get to know her as well as Sam either. Having spent a lot of quality time with Thomasina, I believe she lived the life she wanted to live. I believe she did exactly what she wanted to do, and she strived to accomplish her goals. I loved her so much as my friend. I was so proud of her. Her mother was feeling pretty good at the time of her lives. She would do a dance called the Snake Hips just for fun. Tommy would have her friends over all the time in the evenings. She would rehearse for them and accompany herself on the piano. She often rehearsed at her home, and ultimately drew a large crowd of friends as her audience. If you think the dancers of today are hot, think again. You hadn't seen anything like our mother doing this seductive, hip rotating, mesmerizing, exotic dance. Mom would have us all in stitches. Then she would sing her favorite song, a little ditty that goes something like this. Looking all over for my striped drawers, and when I found them, they were full of mud. Get back, get back, get back. Jack, honey. We would be rolling in exhausted laughter. We really loved it when mother was like this, and I know our friends felt the same way. Our mother was just so down to earth and unpretentious. Moments like this I cherish. Tommy doing well and mother happy and healthy. There were love oozing from our house. There was love oozing from our house when everyone felt good. It went all over the neighborhood, spilling over from our house to the next and the next. Tommy was now back in dance class too in German high school. Lillian B was in dance class with Tommy. I met Thomasina Montgomery in German high school, and I was a senior and she was a freshman. We did not have class together other than physical education gym, which cut across all age groups. Our gym class consisted of interpretive dance and included Loma Falana, Judith Jameson, myself, and Tommy. We were the best, and our gym teacher often used us as demonstrators for the class. I'm not certain of Tommy's scholastic aptitude, but rather suspect she was more intrigued by the thought of her performances in the local clubs and other venues. I do remember her as being approachable and down to earth. Tommy was always humming. The music was, to be sure, in her veins. One of my most vivid recollections of Tommy was hanging out by the school gate and concertizing to the passersby. She loved to sing and did not need much encouragement to do so. When not at her school stage out at the gate, she would often hang out with her friends down the street at a steak and hoagie shop where all of the really in crowd hung out. As years went by and she started making inroads with her career, I felt so proud, just proud to know that someone else from junior high school was doing well. After all, Lola went to Hollywood. Judy became a toast of New York with her dancing coming. Flynn Edwards became a highly successful fashion designer, and Kenny Barone became one of the most skilled jazz pianists to tickle the ivories. Kenny says, "I could read about Tommie, and I said my, I mean, I would read about Tommie, and I said to myself, I remember her. My sister indeed stayed busy and became a permanent figure in the local Philly music scene. She was a featured singer most of the time when she performed. Other times I would do gigs. Other times she would do gigs and help her friends out by singing backup. For one particular show, I remember Tommy wore a green suit and Miss Taylor had made for her. Tommy was stunning. I always loved how stylish my older sister was. Cousin Grace Woods. Tommy looked dynamite in her clothes. She was built like a brick house. After this particular show, Tommy sent Daddy into yet another tizzy. I heard all this racket downstairs and jumped up from bed and snuck halfway down the stairs. I saw Tommy lying in the coat closet on the floor. All I could hear was my father screaming at Tommy, "Girl, as long as you live, don't ever come in this house drunk." He was standing over her with a belt. Tommy lifted her head up and she cried, "Yes, Daddy." She crawled out of the closet and over to the staircase. I held her, her up the stairs. She then flew into the bathroom and up chunk, just missing the toilet. She stayed in there for a very long time. The room is spinning, she cried. I stayed in there with her and put a damp cloth over her head. It seems like this infuriated my father. His thought process was that she would have never come to contact with alcohol if she was concentrating on her studies, staying home, and doing her homework. Tommy would respect my father, but not always obey him. Again, here was Tommy creating some drama for herself. This just went with who she was, though, and her past was such. She experienced everything under the sun and then some. When I think about my sister and her early career, I am so impressed with how much she actually accomplished. The list of pioneers of the soul and R&B scene that she worked with is astonishing. She is working among on legends and was holding her own. Her solo shows were about an hour and a half long. She held grueling schedules. When she headlined solo, she would pick the songs and even hired musicians. Now, with Mother having talked to James Brown, the future seemed very bright for Tommie's career. Well, this next chapter seems like it's about to be upsetting. Excuse me. I gotta take a break, y'all. A little break. Hold on. Chapter 8, I Cried. The year 1963 began a new chapter in our lives. In February, Tommie had recorded 2 songs on James Brown's Tommie label. There was I Cry, written by Bobby Bird and James Brown. The other tune, If You Don't Think, written by James Brown. This was a result of my mother and Uncle Bob's collaboration along. This was the result of my mother and Uncle Bob's collaboration along with Buddy Nolan's introduction to James Brown. I have no insight into how she got out of her Skeptor contract. Perhaps the term of the contract had expired. Tommie was with a second label, and as always, she was pressing forward and going on the road. To prepare for this venture, Tommie and Mother went to New York. They returned with a completely new wardrobe consisting of several lace, silk, and Chanel full-length gowns. Or Chanel, oh, full-length gowns with shoes to match. If something did not match, Mother dyed it by hand to complete the ensemble. The bedroom was overflowing with new items stocks and stacks of stockings, gloves, garter belts, waist clenchers, and strapless bras were laid out across the bed. Mom and Tommie diligently packed each wardrobe bag and suitcase. These outfits were fit for a princess. Tommie's makeup case was filled with everything to make her even more beautiful, including foundation, lipstick, eyeliners, and eyebrow pencils. They sent me to the store at the last minute for witch hazel and cotton balls. Mother and Tommie traveled by train to New York after they packed. Mother called every day to check on me. Alan Leeds confirms that Tommie toured with James Brown for approximately 8 months on primarily one-night gigs. There were also several long-week engagements at some of the leading theaters on the R&B circuit. During these months, Tommie performed in Washington at the Howard Theater, the Royal Theater in Baltimore, the Apollo in New York, many one-nighters at the Midwest Southeast, in the Midwest, Southeast, and throughout Texas. She also played in her hometown and was back up at the Uptown Theater. There it had all be, where it had all begun so many years ago. Sneaking into the stage door to see Mickey and Sylvia, except at this time she was the star. She replaced Von Fair in the review. Tommie Burr remembers the first time he met my sister. I first met Tommie when James Brown needed a great vocalist on the show. For a show, and this was late 1962. She came to New York to meet with us and discuss being part of the show. It was in the Universal Attractions office on 57th Street where we first met Boyd. She was the prettiest little lady in the world. She came in for the meeting, and we all agreed that she was the one for the show. She may have had her parents with her waiting outside in the lobby. I did not meet them. Just, just Tammy. We recorded "I Cried" in Miami, Florida. The song had been written for someone else, but I am glad that Tammy got it because she did a tremendous job with it. I played keyboards on that record. The girl was a professional all the way. You did not have to tell her anything. She knew what to do naturally. She did the song in a few takes like a pro. She knew her capabilities and she knew her talent. You do not have much time when you are in the studio. I could give her any song, any key, and it was no problem for her. James Brown works a certain way, and she fit right in with his disciplines. We had fun together in the recording studio. My mother was doing well and was able to be with her during some of her road trips. Tommy would travel most of the time by tour bus or airplane when she was on the road. When she was out in other cities, she loved to shop. That was another one of her favorite hobbies. She adored all styles of shoes, especially very high heels. My sister sent many postcards that documented her travels. Tommy had the opportunity to see much of the country and call home frequently. Alan Lees confirms that James Brown had a confident and wardrobe manager named Gertrude Saunders who toured with him. My parents knew and met Gertie. They knew that Tommy would have another female companion. She carried weight as the unofficial authority over the band, crew, and tour bus. She had James' ear, and he put her in charge of the females who toured with him. Gertie would chaperone, support, and befriend the females on the road. She took care of Tommie's needs and kept an eye on her, so to speak. Tommy called me at least twice a week to tell me where she was and whom she was hanging out with. I look forward to these regular updates. She would tell me what hotel she was staying in and that she was just having the best time ever now that her career was affording her more exposure. Tommy sounded so thrilled when she talked about her adventures. I would be mesmerized by her world again. I felt like I was there with her. I cannot express enough how grown up my sister was. This ruling lifestyle suited her. It is where she wanted to be, and she absolutely loved it. I would talk to Tommy at night and get lost in her world. Then I would do my homework and doze off to sleep as Tommy lived life fully not on the road. Fully out on the road. I'm sorry. Mr. Bird adds, "Ugh, being on the road is hard, much harder than it is now. With her being a woman, she handled it great. She was strong and hung in there with all we were put through, with segregation and everything. Tammy meant to be something and she fought to be somebody. She worked hard for this. By the time April rolled around, she had become a full fledged pro and a very seasoned stage performer working and performing everywhere. Tommie was 18 years old and going on 40, it seemed. In May, my mother would take me to New York to see Tommie perform at the Apollo. Daddy would not be with us on this trip. Tommie was staying at a lovely hotel in Manhattan. Her suite was beautiful and spacious with a sitting area and bedroom. The space was adorned with the array of flowers that complemented the colors of the decor. There was a fantastic view of New York's skyline from both rooms. James Brown spoiled Tommy. He had cosmetologists who took care of all of Tommy's needs. Her hair was so different now. A professional hair weave was the style at this time. Daily facials, manicures, and pedicures were also on the menu. James bought her many presents, fur jewelry, and gorgeous ensembles. Each outfit more beautiful than the last. Tommy's favorite perfume was Youth Dew by Essie Lauder. I often have sweet memories when I encounter that scent today. Other times it can make me feel nostalgic and melancholy. Or melancholy. Um, After we settled into Tommy's room, we were famished. She ordered room service and afterward took us to our favorite thing. Yep, you guessed it, shopping. She bought my mom and me a exquisite from Saks Fifth Avenue. We spent a wonderful day together shopping at the fine stores and enjoyed being with Tommy and the Big Apple. What what an exciting time to be alive. We returned to the hotel, and when we entered Tommy's room, we saw that James Brown was sleeping in Tommy's bed. He woke up abruptly, greeted us politely, and left. Mother appeared pensive and seemed awfully worried and confused. Our cousin Little Jeannie from Sumter had moved to New York by this time and came to the show as well. We were to meet up with her later. James and Tommy's show at the Apollo was phenomenal. Phenomenal. Tommy got a standing ovation. Mother looked at Tommy on stage and with stars beaming from her eyes. My heart sang to observe our mom in such a euphoric state. Tommy was so beautiful, and her performance was just outstanding. When I looked at my mother that night, I saw an angelic aura that enveloped her. She was completely full of pride, awe, and wonderment that she had brought such a child into this world. Emotion overtook me as well. I yearned to have that loving response from my mother, but I understood, and it was okay. Tommy was the apple of her eye, and she was just so proud to be her first daughter. I had enough love within for both of us. I love my mother so much, it did not matter. Tommy's voice had improved so much, as well as her entire stage presence. She had it going on. Bobby Bird says Tommy was joking about the Apollo audience. She knew they were a tough crowd and she thought they throw tomatoes or rotten eggs at her. Well, of course, they did not. They loved her and she got a standing ovation. Tommy was the star and she headlined these shows. The audience adored her. What was there not to like? She was the co-star of the James Brown Review. She was never a backup singer. She held her own spot on the bill. She was a class act on stage, first class all the way. Sh- She had been doing this for many years before she got with us. We wish we had her longer than we did. We loved her so much. She was a beautiful person. I wish more people would have seen her in this element. She was incredible. The venue really highlighted her talents, and she was something else. She would get an ovation every time. This girl could sing. My mother felt something more secure now with Tommy being older and with Judy overseeing her. So felt she did not have to be with her all the time now. My father had a talk with James Brown and Jersey, and they assured my parents that Tommie would be safe in their care. She was having so much fun. What was there to worry about? Mm. Let me take another little break. Tommy and James played at Grossingers in upstate New York. My mother and I went again to New York to see the show. It was the most pleasurable getaway. Bob Hope was a hit on the egg. Mr. Hope was heading to Vietnam to perform for the troops, and he invited Tommy to go see him. To go with him. Tommy was not free to pursue other avenues during her time with James Brown. She had other contractual obligations, so she politely declined Mr. Hope's invitation, thinking maybe they could work together another time in the future. She was very flattered he asked her to go. The Vietnam War was something that Tommy felt strongly about, and I know she would have loved to perform for the troops. While Tommy was on break from the show, we were home and listening to the radio when her song I Cry came on. It flowed through the air. I thought this was the saddest song I had ever heard. James and Bobby must have been depressed when they wrote it. Tommy played the Latin Casino while she was with the James Brown Review. The Land Casino was in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. The club was demolished several years ago. It was one of the best known supper clubs of the era. All the top stars of the day performed there. It was on Route 70, just outside of Camden, New Jersey. All you had to do was just drive over the Ben Franklin or Walt Whitman bridges. It's approximately to us was the order of Michigan to Canada, only about 4 or 5 miles from downtown Philadelphia. Tommy would perform her melody of songs such as My Funny Valentine, Misty, and Yesterday. She loved to sing these standards, and man, she tore the house down. All her Philly top disc jockeys, politicians, and even groupies would frequent the club. It was so close to Philly and so convenient. Famous Philly DJs Sonny Hobson, Georgie Woods, High Lid, Laura Flan Leroy, and Joe Butterball would let their hair down at the Latin. Tommy was friends with so many radio personalities. It was the Latin where I again ran into the evils of alcohol. During one of the evening shows, I encountered a prominent Philly DJ drunk as a skunk. It was clearly not good for the radio personality to be seen this way in public. After witnessing her embarrassing condition, I reflected on my own encounters with alcohol, and at that young age, I decided at that moment that I would never drink again. Another night while Tommy was performing at the Land, I had the pleasure and honor of sitting at the same table with Tommy and Daddy's friend, Mr. Cassius Clay, the controversial Muhammad Ali. We attended this show with Mr. Calvin Lockhart. Calvin was a deep, dark, velvety, gorgeous chocolate man. He was in many movies during this time. He was a steady fixture in blaxploitation films. Black exploitation films. Oh, I keep saying stuff wrong. Tommy and Daddy knew everyone. My dad invited them to attend Tommie's show, and it was he who introduced me to both men. I was like Tommy in a way that I looked much older than I was. I remember Colin said to me, "You're so pretty." I was so shy and embarrassed and did not know how to take a compliment. I had never dated anyone and did not really even like any boy yet. Having that kind of attention came from Mr. Lockhart. I was simply smitten with him as we sat together that night and enjoyed Tommy's show. It was during the weekend that our mother received a devastating, I said devastating, I mean, this distressing phone call. Mother was horrified to learn that Tommy had encountered some trouble out on the road and was coming home. James more than one incident took, uh, hold on, I'm sorry. James had beaten her mercilessly, and Tommy won out. There had been more than one incident, and it took Tommy some time to figure out how to get away. Gene Chandler was on the show with Tommy, and he said that my mother, uh, in the mail, who I believe would have been Uncle Winnie, went to get her. My mother called my father and left immediately to get Tommy. Gene says Tommy was in a tumultuous relationship with James Brown. I witnessed a situation and she came to me for help. When I called her parents, Tammy came and knocked on my dressing room door after a fight with Jane. She asked me to help her. I did not want to get involved in the drama of their relationship squabbles. After I thought about it, I knew I needed to help her, so I called her mother. She was happy that I let her know. I could not take her out of there myself and help her on that personal level. So that is why I intervened and called her mother. If they had not come to get her, I would have helped her get away. The next day, her mother showed up with some mail at the theater to take her home. We had daily shows, and there was not one thing anyone could do. Her mom was there to get her, and that was that. Her mother was very appreciative towards me. Ultimately, I was invited to their home when I was in Philly. Her mother thought I was a nice young man. I was a big brother role model for Tammy. Mom and Tommy returned home together the following morning. Tommy was involved romantically with James, and it was an abusive situation. She managed to help the affair. She managed to keep the affair from my parents, more so my father. Mother had a clue since our visit to New York where we encountered James in Tommy's room. My father was especially hurt. For one thing, Tommy was only 18 and James was 30. He trusted James with his daughter. My mother felt it safe to stop being on the road with her, and for this to happen hurt them both deeply. When Tommy returned home, she looked disheveled, tired, and just worn out. Tommy frequently burned the candle at both ends. This was an extremely stressful situation. I learned that she had I learned that she had been trying to get away from her some time, but was worried about any breach of contract repercussions she had left. But Tommy was a fighter and enough was enough. Just like anything else in her life she had experienced, she did not take anyone's disrespect. She risked it all and walked away with integrity. While mother and I were unpacking Tommie's things in the basement, my mother discovered a blue silk oriental dress. I believe it was called a kimono. James had brought it. This dress had particular significance. There was blood all over it. We learned that Tommie's abuse was ex- extensive and that this tragic incident involved an umbrella. The details were of no consequence. I am only expressing this much finally because it needs to be known and confirmed. Daddy was never completely advised of all of the horrific details. I'm sure he would have pressed charges. What he did know about the situation was enough to arrange him from this point forward. He never completely accepted her choice for this career, even though she loved show business so very deeply. For her, this was just an unfortunate incident and setback. It did not hold her down for long when it came to pursuing her dream. For all of us as a united family, we dealt with anger and eventually forgiveness regarding Tommy. It was much more painful for her that she did not receive father's support in her music career any longer. Enduring hardships and trials she could bear, wanting Dave's approval eluded her. That was harder for her than what she had just recently been subjected to. Mother and I unpacked Tommy's things that day and put them in storage in the basement. Mother felt responsible and guilty for this to have happened to Tommy since she was instrumental in her becoming part of the review. We sat down in the basement and cried for more than an hour. We kept this family secret, and it pained us greatly. As a family, we never discussed openly what Tommy had gone through. Tommy ties to the James Brown review were cut. She moved on accordingly with her life, as did we. After she left the James Brown review, we spent one more summer in Wildwood, New Jersey, where Tommy headlined again with Steve Gibson and the Red Cats. The club she sang at this summer was a smaller, more intimate setup. The clientele was highly upscale, so she pulled a very good salary. This summer, we stayed at the Ivy Hill Hotel, an African American owned hotel with a adjoining restaurant. Everybody on the circuit, including the VIPs, frequented the place. I began to form my own opinions about the business or show, and was clear I did not want to pursue that path. There was a downside to show business. There was incredible highs, and then there were very sad lows that went along with it. One had to be very tough to endure the constant variables that went along with a career like this. I saw firsthand why my father had the concerns he did. I also knew that no matter what Tommy endured, our heart was in it for the long run. Yeah, somebody should press charges and whoop James Brown ass. The same way he whooped her with that umbrella, they should have whooped his ass. In, ingrained were fears that I developed at such a vulnerable age. There was deep consternation from witnessing my mother's illness and with what I was unwittingly privy to with Tommy dilemmas. I was young and I would never have said a word to her about what I thought or felt, not to her nor my parents. The unwritten law was children should be seen and not heard. You had to respect your parents and keep your opinion to yourself. You were to be obedient and quiet and not speak back to them. Tommy was always the quintessential rebel and rarely played by the rules. I kept silent and would not deal with these issues until many years later regarding what happened to Tommy in these early years. While we were in Wildwood, Patty and the Bluebells were showcased at another popular club. Tommy hung out with Patty, Cindy, Nona, and Sarah. I remember one Saturday afternoon when Tommy and I walked into the beachcomber. The girls were sitting at the table looking sad and gloomy. Cindy's face and cheeks were tear stained because her mother had passed away, but the management would not let her out her contract to attend her mother's funeral. We all just sat there in disbelief. The lesson of this day stayed with me forever about the cruelties of show business. My heart wept with her. Tommy came back after the show that night and said, that show really stung. Who would think otherwise? I felt no contract was worth that, but entertainers had to go on with the show and just move on. They were accustomed to the difficulties that went with this lifestyle. Bell recalls those times she spent with Tommy. Tommy and I were buddies. We were so young then. So young, I remember what a beautiful girl she was, pretty as can be. She had a beautiful spirit and was so fun loving and just loved life. Tammy was always making everyone laugh and feel good. She was playful, goofy, and crazy. She and I had a lot in common and shared some good times together. I can say that it was positive and good times, and I am sure we did some naughty things and got into stuff, but we had fun. We all hung out as girlfriends. We liked clothes and shoes and shared the same passion for fashion. As a performer, I remember what a voice she had live. Her voice was beautiful and nobody could sing like Amy, nobody. She was bold, vivacious, and daring on stage, and like me, she took chances on stage and in life. She was free on stage, not stiff. She was a natural and unafraid. You felt her and her words hit your emotions when she sang. She would let it all go up there. Let go and let God is what I always say. She was one of the purest souls I ever knew and one of the most generous people in this business. She held others in high regard. Timmy was an honest person and it came through in everything she did. Honest with herself, others, and her artistry. The, fr- the friendships that began that summer meant so much to my sister for many years to come. God bless you, Patty, Cindy, Nona, and Sarah. Tommie continued to do nightly gigs. When she was free, she had a chance to hang out with Diane and Nita, two sisters who were the daughters of the saxophone player in Steve's band, Vance Wilson. All of us would spend hours on the beach worshiping the sun until we were critics, take a long swim in the ocean, and nap on the beach. In late August, a group of my friends, Forrest, Larry, and George Whitemore, along with Mom and Tommie, were looking at the march on Washington on television. We were in the hotel solarium that late afternoon. Joan Baez sang "Oh Freedom." We screamed and clapped when Stevie Wonder performed "Fingertips." Dr. Martin Luther King was elegant in his speech and demeanor. On that day, he made us very proud to be African American. So many people were glued to the TV set, but Tommie had to leave. She went to bed because she had to rest before the show that night. Our father took a group of men to the Black War Leaders Association in Philadelphia to this event of the century. We were proud of our father for what he did politically to help the civil rights movement. A he was very dedicated to this cause. I'm sorry. Here that evening at the club, an unexpected visitor in a complicated situation interrupted us. A detective showed up out of nowhere and questioned the perpetrator. He then came over to our table and asked our friend George Whitemore to stand up. George, a young man with red hair and a fair complexion, also spoke with a stutter. We considered him slow and mentally challenged. He made a living most of the time as a busboy. The detective read him his rights, handcuffed him, and escorted him from the premises. We hardly knew what to think. About a month later, we found out what happened. George was the main suspect in the murder investigation. There was a socialite in New York who was mutilated and killed. That winter, I was surprised to receive the subpoena to appear, subpoena or whatever it's called, in court to uh, uh, in court. I can't talk. Hold on. That winter, I was surprised to receive a subpoena in court. I mean, to appear in court in New York City. Mother accompanied me on a long, cold winter afternoon. I was instructed to identify George in a series of pictures that were placed before me on a huge wooden desk by a detective in a dimly lit room. He also showed me stacks of pictures of white women. I could not identify any of them. Other detectives asked me a few questions, took us to lunch, and then put us in a limo headed for home. Mom later said that George had shown a picture to us in Wildwood that resembled the victim. I told Mother that the photo George had in Wildwood was like the one you get when you purchase a wallet. Later, George was convicted and served time for not only this case, but several other cases. In 1973, Telly Savalas starred in a TV movie called The Marcus Nelson Matters. The movie portrayed the incident and confirmed my suspicion that George had been framed. Nonetheless, George served 2 more years in the community. criminal justice system, a practice that prevails today for too many African Americans in our society. Finally, they released George from prison once the real perpetrator was apprehended. Our family never heard from George again. I cried, written by James Brown and Bobby Bird. I cried. I cried. My heart full of misery. I cried. And now it's your turn to cry for me. So many days going by. All I could do is cry. You keep me. You keep me in pain. I promise you. I'll never love again. I cried over you. You know that I always been true. All right, so I read two chapters. Pretty sad. I'm gonna get back to y'all next one.